requirement to advise everyone present that your attendance is taken as consent to the possibility that your image and or voice may be recorded and broadcast to the public via our live stream. Any other visual and or sound recordings of this meeting requires prior permission, and the decision to allow must be a unanimous decision of council. Today we'll be joined by special guest as we'll be conducting a citizenship ceremony, and Pat Conahan MP, Federal Member for Cowper, will be joining us, and also the candidates for citizenship, and we will also be joined by Zoom by Council's external auditors. We will break at approximately 10:30 to allow councillors and staff a short break and morning tea. In the chambers today, we have Councillor Dean Saul, Councillor Sue McGinn, Mark Baxter, Ashley Williams, Bruce Morris, Anna Shields, and our Deputy Mayor Anthony Patterson, myself, Liz Campbell, the Mayor and Chairperson, and we are joined by our Director Operations and Planning, Robert Fish, Director Corporate and Commercial, Stephen Mitchell, General Manager, Craig Milburn, and Manager Governance, Daniel Thorogood. And by Zoom, we'll be joined by Councillor Leo Horval. So welcome everyone, our Council General Manager, Executive Team and staff. Good morning and welcome to anyone joining us by live stream, and a special welcome to the community members that are in chambers today. Thank you for joining us. Reminder, councillors, voting will be called for any dissent vote. No dissent vote is an affirmative. Abstaining vote is recorded as a vote against. If there's no dissent vote, the motion will pass unanimously. Councillors, please remember to activate your microphones when you have been acknowledged to speak, or if you wish to speak, so I can see that your lights are on. And to formally begin, we will start with item number 1, which is the opening prayer. Dear Lord, help us in our deliberations today so that our decisions will be for the greater good for the whole of the Kempsey Shire. Amen. And we acknowledge country. Kempsey Shire Council acknowledges the land of the Dunghutti Nation. We pay respects to elders past and present. We acknowledge the role of emerging leaders to continue to guide us in the future. We acknowledge the stolen generations and the need to change practices to be inclusive. This land always was and always will be Dunghutti land. There's no apologies or applications of leave of councillors today. And item number 4 is the confirmation of minutes. There is the draft minutes for adoption. Thank you, Councillor Patterson.
Second that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Saul.
It's 11 hard years, mate.
I just can't see Councillor Horval, but Councillor Morris has his light on. Yes, Councillor Morris.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to move an amendment. I couldn't have my last meeting without moving an amendment to the previous minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Morris.
Whether the amendment will be accepted, I don't know. Before Councillor Patterson asks, will it change the outcome of the minutes? No, it won't. But I do believe that I should move the amendment first and get a second before I speak to it. I move that we adjust the participants to remove the Director Operations and Planning, Mr. Robert Fish, from the list of attendees at the meeting.
You wish to incorporate that into the minutes? That is in actual fact what happened. He was not there.
And it was mentioned numerous times throughout the meeting.
Yes.
I believe it's important that we have the attendance recorded accurately.
Thank you. Do you wish to incorporate that?
Yes, that's fine, Madam Mayor, and I believe that Council do a fantastic job recording these minutes.
Thank you, Councillor.
Too bad it wasn't brought up last night.
Thank you. So that's accepted, if that's all right with you, and that will be recorded. Thank you, Councillor Morris. Is there any dissent on the minutes? There's no dissent. They've been passed. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to item number 5, which is the disclosure of interest. Is there any disclosure of interest? Yes, Councillor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to declare non-significant, non-pecuniary in item 11.1 as I'm known to one of the parties.
Thank you. Councillor Horval.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good morning. I just managed to join.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary significant conflict in item 9.6, the Australia Day Committee report, as I am a mayoral candidate. I will manage the conflict by leaving the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor. More conflicts of interest, we will continue on. We are now on item number 6, which is the items passed by exception. We have listed here for exception. Councillors are able to ask questions. 9.1 is the change of the order of business. 9.6 is the Australia Day Committee report. 9.7 is the Recovery Action Plan update. 9.8 is the dog walking beach access Crescent Head area. 9.9 is the Code of Conduct complaint statistics. 9.10 is the Statement of Cash and Investments. And 11.1 is legal matters. And 11.2 is the Audit and Risk Committee. Councillor McGinn, I'll take Councillor McGinn first, because we will take any withdrawals or any questions, and then I'll take Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to withdraw 11.2.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Morris.
I'd like to, obviously we need to withdraw 9.6 because Councillor Horville has declared a conflict of interest, but I didn't intend to withdraw it anyway. So 9.6 and 9.8. And I'd like to ask a question on 9.9.
Certainly, Councillor.
In 9.9, there's mention of an outstanding Code of Conduct complaint in which, by reading the report, indicates it's cost Council $24,001 in investigations. How long has that been outstanding? Is there expected to be any further costs before it is finalised, and when is there any indication as to when it might be finalised?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll get our Manager of Governance to give a brief update on that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just first of all, one slight correction. The 24,001 was the total cost of all the complaints we have handled, so it's not attributable to that single complaint. The complaint has been outstanding since the beginning of October last year. It has been referred to the Office of Local Government, is in their hands, and we don't have any idea when to expect a resolution of that complaint.
Could I ask a question on that, Madam Mayor, please?
Yes, Councillor.
Are we allowed to know who the complaint's about?
No.
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, you're not. And the matter before Council is actually just about the actual statement or an update to Council and community on it. It's not about specific Code of Conduct complaints.
We haven't had a mover, have we? But we do now have the resolution in front of us, which is 9.1, 9.7, 9.9, 9.10 and 11.1.
Is that way, Madam?
Thank you, Councillor. Moved by Councillor Saul and seconded by Councillor Shields, I believe. Any dissent? There's no dissent. Thank you, councillors. That's been carried. .1 was in the block. So we move on to 9.2, which is the planning proposal part lot. Yes, it was. So we're moving on to 9.2, which is the planning proposal for part lot 35 DP 12144499 Southwest Rocks. I will ask the director to introduce the report before we take a mover and seconder. Thank you, Director Fish.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, I will reiterate some of the information I ran through last night, but I think that's probably important for, I guess, those in the community to get a greater understanding of the reason for this report to Council today. So just quickly, the purpose of the report on the business paper is to, firstly, just to confirm the outcome of the Regional Planning Panel's review and decision, and then secondly, for Council to determine as to whether it will be the Planning Proposal Authority going forward for the planning proposal. So the report is not about the relative merit of the planning proposal, as council has no decision before it in this regard, given the rezoning review was considered by the regional planning panel a couple of months ago. Just, I guess, quickly for some background or context of the particular location. So the broader area of saltwater was rezoned back in 2009. However, this particular area was excluded from that rezoning, or the area that's subject to the current planning proposal was excluded from that rezoning, as it was deemed a deferred area at the time. So the proponent of the planning proposal commenced discussions with our strategic planning team with regard to the deferred area late last year. At that time, a number of key issues and concerns were raised with the proponent, as outlined in the report, with the suggestion that any lodgement be delayed until such time as the South West Rock Structure Plan be completed. That structure plan is in progress at the moment, with a consultant recently engaged performing the background investigation work at present. In February, the planning proposal was lodged to rezone the deferred area to R1 general residential from the current RU2 zoning. Amendments to the planning proposal were lodged on the 11th of March and also the 3rd of May. In late May, the proponent lodged a rezoning review with the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment, claiming that council had failed to indicate its support for the planning proposal within 90 days. Council staff had commenced a review of the lodged planning proposal and subsequent amendments. However, given the amendments lodged, staff were certainly of the view that each of the amendments was in fact the lodgement of a new planning proposal. And obviously the matter had not had ability to be thoroughly considered, liaised with proponent, or reported to council for consideration to request a gateway determination by the department. So the rezoning review was heard by the regional planning panel in August. Both council staff and the proponent addressed and answered questions of the planning panel. The Department of Industry and Environment informed council of the planning panel's decision in October, advising that the proposal should be submitted for gateway determination, and requesting council advise as to whether it wants to be the planning proposal authority or for the planning panel to fulfil that function, which would be with the department's support. So we now need to confirm as to whether we wish to be the planning proposal authority or not, which is the reason for the report and the need for council to make a decision on this item. And a copy of the record of decision and key points for the regional planning panel making its decision are attached to the report, and some letters and the actual planning proposal itself. Since receipt of advice of that record of the decision, council staff have written to the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment seeking further clarification of that decision and raising concern with regard to some fundamental matters. And they with regard to as to whether council had in fact had 90 days to consider the planning proposal, noting that the version of the planning proposal submitted, the latest version was submitted in early May, and the rezoning review was lodged late May, so obviously significantly less than a 90-day period, and also concerns with regards to the proximity of the sewage treatment plant, requiring further investigation with respect to noise and odour as part of the planning proposal development, and consideration of any impacts of the planning proposal on the Saltwater Creek catchment. We're awaiting reply to that letter, but the letter is attached to the report for council's information. So as mentioned, the purpose of the report is for consideration as to whether council is to advise the department that it seeks to be the planning proposal authority going forward. In that role, council officers would ensure the eight conditions that are outlined in the regional planning panel's decision are complied with prior to seeking the gateway determination for the planning proposal, noting that the further investigations required by the 8 conditions of the regional planning panel may require amendment to the actual proposal itself. The gateway determination, once ultimately received, may outline further studies being required and the public notification requirements of the planning proposal. The report recommends council take on the planning proposal authority role, Our staff would typically perform this function in any case for a planning proposal, and are obviously best positioned to perform that function. The alternative for council today is to not take on the planning proposal authority role, with that function then going to the regional planning panel if you were to make that decision. The matter is not able to be deferred to a future council meeting, as we must inform the department of our decision within 42 days of the letter which was received on the 18th of October, when we were informed of the planning panel's decision and requested to advise on whether we wanted to be the planning proposal authority or not. So that's what's before you today. We'll just also take the opportunity just to note that the current planning proposal is not a DA. It is for a rezoning, which is requesting amendment to the LEP. The rezoning is seeking for a residential land use to be permissible on the land. A DA would be a subsequent step for the proponent. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Move that way, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. It's seconded by Councillor Shields, moved by Councillor Patterson. I have a question from Councillor Horville and Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, thank you, Director Fish, for your extensive report. And I've been reading your letter, which you sent on the 19th of October, very closely. It appears that there's this 90-day trigger that you're talking about, as you've written. There is now an opportunity for proponents to game the system. What can council do to fix this obvious flaw in the practices? Do we write to the planning department or the planning minister, or do we need to do something further in the recommendation here today?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that matter is not before council. It's actually relevant to this report, Councillor Horville. Council staff have already taken that up with the planning department.
So thank you. We've actually trying to fix this 90-day clock thing that's been used against us, Mr. General Manager.
That was raised in the letter you're referring to with the department.
Yes, that was to the planning panel, Mr. General Manager. Yes, so it's the same system, I guess. Thank you very much.
Councillor Morris.
Madam Mayor, last night a question was asked, which Director Fish said that he would.
Have you got your microphone on, Bruce?
Pardon?
Oh, sorry.
You can take your mask down
Yeah,
if you're
right.
talking.
There was a question to Director Fish yesterday or last night about the height of buildings, which he said he would have a look at overnight and come back with an answer today. Is the planning proposal as it is presented, is it to reduce or to remove the 8.5 metre height restriction, or is that likely to be retained within the planning proposal that's going Gateway?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. The height limit within the current version of the planning proposal is for an 8.5 metre height limit over the areas the subject of the planning proposal.
So that is included in the planning proposal. Another question, noise and order was mentioned. If that's not considered in the gateway or not conditioned as a part of the gateway determination, could these reasonably be included in any subsequent DA for subdivision?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we've obviously raised in our letter to the department that we have a concern that wasn't one of the 8 conditions that the planning panel imposed. Certainly we would be seeking that a condition of the gateway be that further work be undertaken in that regard. The proponent, I understand, believes adequate work has already happened in that regard, and there is some commentary within the planning proposal itself. But obviously the department, in making the gateway determination, will make that decision. When we come to the development application stage, if we feel it's not adequately addressed, I would expect we'd be able to seek some further information or studies in that regard from the proponent. But obviously a fair way to go until we get to that point.
Councillor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What would happen if Kempsey Shire Council decided it would not want to be the planning proposal authority and the Northern Regional Planning Panel took on that role?
Yes, so as it stands at the moment, the Regional Planning Panel has made its decision, which is to refer to Gateway subject to the 8 conditions. So in performing that role as the planning proposal authority, The planning panel would be ensuring that those 8 conditions are satisfied by the proponent prior to requesting the gateway determination. Once the gateway determination is received, the planning panel would then undertake the steps that are outlined within the gateway determination.
Can I ask a question on that, Madam Mayor? Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Patterson.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Director Fish, could you give us a small explanation why these developments go through the gateway for determination?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, that's the legislated pathway for rezoning of land. So in this particular proposal, the proponent is seeking to rezone the area of land identified from RU2 to R1. And that requires the submission of a planning proposal, and the pathway for that is via a gateway determination through the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment.
By council taking on the position in this in item 1.1 of being the planning proposal, well, that will obviously give council more say in alignment with the development, because I note that there's a concept development approval area right next door to this. So obviously for South West Rocks, we would want them to marry up and to be functional.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, as you've just pointed out, there is a concept development application or consent for the area immediately to the east of this particular site. If we, or as the planning proposal authority, I guess we're ensuring that the 8 conditions that the planning panel put in place are satisfied adequately prior to seeking the gateway determination. Then we would also be managing the subsequent steps following gateway determination. Obviously we've made the recommendation that we be the planning proposal authority through that ability to have, I guess, a greater role in the consideration of the matter. If we weren't the planning proposal authority, then obviously we would be a stakeholder in the process going forward. But I guess the level of control and oversight we would have would be considerably less, because that would fall to the planning panel.
Thank you.
Councillor Horval.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A question to you, if I could, Mr. General Manager. You explained it last night, but I think the people watching this or in the gallery should understand the reasons why this is being considered as a major planning decision possibly in the caretaker period of this council.
Through Madam Mayor, it's not a major development application decision. It's actually just simply saying that council would be the planning panel authority for this. So it's a decision about a role council would take. They're not actually making any decision on any development application, and therefore it is permitted within the caretaker period.
Thank you very much.
And just to clarify that, my understanding, this is time sensitive. There is a 28.
Yeah, through you. There is a time period for 42 days where we needed to respond from when we were notified, and that certainly occurs well before the next council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. As Councillor Morris just pointed out, that's the 29th of November. And as Councillor Horval indicated in his questioning, had we tried to negotiate, if you like, that time frame, and that didn't happen. So that's probably the answer to that question. Is there any further questions? I put the recommendation. Is there any dissent on the recommendation? There's no dissent. It's been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We now move on to item 9.3, which is the end of term report, and I'll ask the General Manager if he would like to introduce this report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The end of term report is always a significant report for a council. This one probably more so than certainly any other that I've been involved with in 27 years or something in local government now. The term for this council has been 5 years and 3 months. The councillors have been long suffering in those 2 extensions to take you through to this election. So firstly, congratulations to the councillors who have persisted through that whole time and delivered many, many positive outcomes for the community. The report and the attachment outlines a range of achievements that the council has provided to the community, and in doing that has met many of the challenges that were faced by the community. It's fair to say that this term of this council has not been an ordinary term of a council in any way, shape or form. Probably the single biggest decision this council made was very early in its term, and that was to bring in external consultants to actually review and undertake a very deep dive review into the organisation, which resulted in very major and significant change to the senior management. The 3 of us here, my 2 directors and myself, are all new since that period of time, and our new management team with our senior leaders team as well. That has resulted in a very significant change in the culture of the organisation, far more outward facing and engaging with the community. And many of these things can actually be seen in the activities that have been undertaken and the results that have been achieved for the community. Added to that, while delivering a huge range of services and programs and projects as business as usual, this term of council has seen the devastating Black Summer and beyond bushfires through 2019 and into 2020. We've seen 2 years of COVID now. We've had significant landslips that cut off communities such as Bellbrook and the surrounding areas in that area. We've also dealt with the March floods this year, which was, from everyone I've spoken to, while not as high as other floods in some regards, was more significant because of the length of the time the water actually lay around and the impacts that it actually had, particularly on the downstream areas of the river. The term started with the council in drought and significant drought. And that drought went on for several years, and we saw the Macleay River stop flowing for about 8 weeks, which, from what I've been told, it's not happened for that period of time in European history here. So it's been a very, very challenging period for this council and for you as councillors to lead this community. The report goes through a whole range of things that have been delivered. There's been many capital projects that have been delivered. There's been many community programs. There's been a whole ongoing recovery and resilience building program that's continued and will continue to be delivered to the community as well. Some of the highlights of that, I guess, are things such as, recently being granted funds to replace 57 of our timber bridges. A really significant impact for our community. The council made the decision to undertake a sports strategy early in its term. We're now seeing that being delivered with the $10+ million at Bird Street, the high performance centre at Southwest Rocks, grants coming in for other sport field upgrades in terms of lighting and things like that as well. We've seen significant road repairs. There's literally been kilometres and kilometres of some of our major roads, Plumbers Lane, Southwest Rocks Road, those sorts of areas that have actually been delivered. Water and sewer, obviously through the drought, were major issues. And there's been a huge amount of background work, planning, and in this next term, many of those projects will actually see their delivery, including the South Kempsey Pump Sewer Scheme, the Crescent Head water upgrade, the Stewart and McIntyre water upgrade, Willawarren water upgrade, and the list there goes on. And probably the most significant one of those will be the West Kempsey, the major total rebuild of our sewer wastewater treatment plant that will then incorporate South Kempsey and Fredericton in the longer term as well. All of these things, I guess, together provide this community with a significant uplift in its infrastructure and a significant uplift in its belief in itself, its ability to continue to grow and prosper in the years to come. So that the report captures obviously a lot more of that. but it's also impossible in a report to capture 5 years and 3 months of incredible hard work. So in just closing this, there's probably two groups to thank. Firstly, the councillors for the ongoing leadership you provided over that time. And secondly, the 300 plus staff that every day have continued to deliver this work for the community. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I'd like to move that, if I could.
Thank you, General Manager. It's been moved by Councillor McGinn and seconded by Councillor Baxter or Councillor Patterson. You can fight over it. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor McGinn, you have your light on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Craig has said it all, really. But I think we've got a lot to be proud of in our community and what council has achieved in the last 5 years under this group, current group of councillors. We've had the strategic focus areas of healthy, wealthy, safe and connected. And of course, for anybody who really wants to read the report, all the details are there. I would like specifically to mention a couple of highlights in the last term. We've all seen recently and really celebrated the fantastic work we've done through our resilience team and the recovery of our community from the devastating bushfires and more recently then the floods. But going back to the drought, one of the things that is a real highlight to me was the way the water team managed our water resources. We were on the verge of basically running out of water, and the strategies that were put into place so that we could endure that 2019 drought were outstanding. And so in all of this, and we tend to forget when you're looking back that we need to look back a bit further than the last three big disasters being the floods, COVID, bushfires. But the drought had a massive impact on our community. And we've had a team in place that have now given us lessons and that we've worked on should that ever occur again in our community. So I really wanted to call out that amazing work that Wes and his team did in our water management strategies. I think that was nothing less than amazing. And then, of course, we had bushfire response, and that was just incredible. And that's in our very current memories. So there's been a lot said on that in recent days and with the film that's going to come out for our community to see over the summer period. One other highlight I would like to highlight is the cultural transformation that this council, this group of councillors backed to look at the cultural transformation for our organisation. And it's quite evident to me that, and I'm sure to the community and to my fellow councillors, that was, it was a very big decision to make. It was something that we didn't take on lightly, and that has had a massive impact for the organisation and therefore for the benefit of our community as a whole. But while we all sing praises to the senior team and to the senior leadership team and the front-facing people who have been there through the number of disasters and challenges that we've had, I'd like to acknowledge on behalf of councillors all of the staff in the organisation. There's a lot of unsung heroes in our community that put in the hard yards day to day, that have been through the cultural transformation. There's new people, there's people who've been here for the journey, people that have come out the other side, and they too are community members that have experienced the drought, the floods, the bushfires, and particularly COVID in their workplace. So I just want to sing out to all staff members, not just the senior leadership team that we as councillors tend to deal with on a day-to-day basis. I thank them for their leadership, but I also thank all of the staff, and you've been a great team, and just thank you very much for looking after our community. So I'd like to commend the report.
Thank you, Councillor McGinn. I have, I'm going to take Councillor Saul, then I'll take Councillor Patterson, I'll take Councillor Baxter, and then I'll take Councillor Morris.
Madam Mayor, thank you for that. With your indulgence, I'd like to have recorded in the minutes a vote of thanks for our General Manager, Director Mitchell and Director Fish. Madam Mayor, as a councillor and councillors, we have been given guidance We've been given proper protocols to follow, and it has actually helped us as a council and councillors. So with your indulgence, I'd like to ask for a vote of thanks to be recorded for their efforts over the last so many years I've been here, and to acknowledge their great work. Thank you for that.
Madam Mayor, could I just, that's very much appreciated. However, I'd prefer it if it was a vote of thanks to the entire staff.
The Mayor, also in the entire staff then, to make it appropriate. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Horval.
I thank Councillor Saul for his vote of thanks, but wouldn't it be better to be put in as an amendment to the actual motion?
I think that was what he was implying, is it?
Madam Mayor, I take your lead on that situation. What do you think would be
but I
appropriate?
thought that was what was being
I think
implied.
that I would
I just want to
accept
make sure that was accepted.
And I think Councillor McGinn was nodding her head there somewhere.
Oh, it is an amendment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
No, it's incorporated into the motion. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I truly believe as a well, I suppose we're in our ninth year now as councillors, in our second, and you can probably nearly say 2 terms and 1 year and a bit. Definitely there's many things that we can show appreciation to our council. I would like to, as a resident and a father and a business owner of the area, in the area, you know, especially note the fact that after the many years of talking and having meetings and, you know, getting the sporting structure of our community together, because it's such a huge thing to deliver to our community with guidance for young people to become sporting stars, competitive people, the opportunities for people with disabilities to also be incorporated, you know, the Eden Street, the South West Rocks, high performance. As a parent, like I was saying before, who's travelled many years up and down the highway to go to places that had better take your children to better places of sport with sporting facilities was very hard work. But now, thanks to our council and councillors, you know, we've been able to deliver that to our community, and I find that a very great achievement for us in the future.
Can I just, I appreciate what you're saying, and I know this is our last council meeting, and we probably all have a lot that we want to say, but we are still in a council meeting. We have a procedure which is a motion, a speaker for, a speaker against, or a question. I let you go, and I will let other councillors go to a degree, but we need to be aware that this is still a formal meeting of council with proper process. So I'm not going to call you out, and I'm not going to say, have you got a question, or are you speaking against? I'll let you go, but you need to be mindful of where we're at in this process.
Yep. Well, I'm actually asking a question.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson.
And the question is to the General Manager about how he feels as a manager of an organisation to be voted employer of choice again for such a large organisation that he leads.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Exceptionally proud and exceptionally privileged. We have 300 plus good people, and I say all the time, good people do good things, and when good people do good things, you build a better community. So very privileged and very proud.
I think the next person I was going to take was Councillor Baxter, and then I was going to Councillor Morris.
Yeah, just a question, Chair. I take on board all of the wonderful achievements at handling the crisis, the drought and the bushfires and the floods. I'd like to ask the Director for Commercial just to highlight another outstanding achievement, considering we were handling all of that at the same time. Am I right to think, to believe, Director, that a good 6 years ago, let's say 2015, the council was on the verge of being declared financially unfit, and that we are now not in that position anymore, and
Still in that position.
it's been a great achievement on behalf of the. What's that?
Okay.
Let's be
Sorry,
factual.
Madam Mayor, I'll jump in there. The council wasn't on the verge of being declared unfit. It was declared unfit, and unfit for the future. It was a financially unsustainable position. While there have been some improvements made, we are still in a financially unsustainable position. There are still hard decisions to be made in this next term of council. There's been significant progress made. However, there's still significant work to be done.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to highlight the significant progress made. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Morris.
Madam Mayor, I'm not going to make such comments because I believe in caretaker mode we shouldn't be promoting ourselves so strongly. But I would like to ask the General Manager to add to his list of activities that were mentioned that are being completed and are planned for next year, being substantial upgrades to Stewart's Point Road, the Stewart's Point foreshore works, and the progress that's going to be happening in the next term for the Stewart's Point sewerage. Unfortunately, there was no mention of Stewart's Point. I've heard some rumblings from the Stewart's Point community that they don't think they're being serviced well. I believe they've been serviced exceptionally well, and we should be making mention of those three projects that were unfortunately not in your summary, Mr. General Manager.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, I note that I also didn't mention Bellbrook, Willawaren, Crescent Head, Hat Head, and all the significant works happened there. So there is limited time. I'd encourage people to read the report, the end of term report, which does highlight those things.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Just in closing, I agree that we need to encourage our community to take the time to read the report. That is the place that we need to be saying something now. I had noticed, and I think Councillor Morris is also correct in highlighting Stewart's Point. They also suffered great trauma, and that was something that we, in the future, that will be something that the new council will need to face and focus on. I think that most of everything has been said. I thank Councillor Saul for adding to the report, but I think the best message that we can give to our community is to, if you want to know what's going on at council, read the end of term report and then read the community strategic plan that's coming up. Is there any dissent on the recommendation? There's no dissent. Oh,
Madam
yes,
Mayor,
Councillor.
I just wanted to add one other comment to what you just said, and that is to encourage people to sign up and like Council on Facebook, or to sign up to their email address so they get email updates from Council on a regular basis, and or they get Facebook feeds to their Facebook site if they're on Facebook. There's a wealth of information in those two areas, and the more people that sign up, the better the information flow will be to the broader community.
Thank you. Knowledge is powerful. Any dissent on the recommendation? There's no dissent. That's been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We will now move on to item 9.4. There's a recommendation in front of us that is around the delivery program and operational plan.
Vote that way, Madam Mayor.
It's been moved by Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor McGinn. I'll just read the recommendation for anyone that can't read it on the screen and who's listening. It is what we have normally at this time of the year, that the quarterly budget review for the period ending 30 September 2021 is adopted. and variations contained therein approved. The progress achieved in delivering the delivery program and operational plan 2021-2022 is noted. The financial sustainability program status report is noted. The key performance indicators report is noted, and the grants status summary is noted. Okay, I have no lights on, so I'm taking it there's no questions. Is there any dissent on the recommendation? There's no dissent. Thank you, councillors. That has been carried. We now move on to item 9.5, which is the Community Strategic Plan Review. Do I have a mover? Yes.
That way, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. So is that it? Were you seconding that, Councillor Morris? Or okay. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Sorry, Williams. It is, yes, that's it. It's the shirts. Councillor Morris, would you like to just outline your amendments, please?
Madam Mayor, I heard what was said yesterday. This is more a community's plan. I believe, though, that the new councillors need to have an opportunity to have some input, and I would like to think that they have that opportunity prior to the public exhibition concluding. So I'd like to propose an amendment that the new council conduct a series of workshops to review, and any changes that they recommend are incorporated into the CSP for consideration towards the end of the public exhibition period. That's one amendment. There is a second one, which I think would be better to go into workshop for, and that is on page 11, or it may not be needed to. Sorry, it wasn't page 11, it was, let me think, it's on page 20 or 30. I can't read it because it's too small. Page 31, it mentions the vision, and it reads, from the mountains to the sea, our people are given the opportunities and infrastructure to build a safe, prosperous and welcoming community, Marungbai. I would like to suggest that we probably add the word resilient after safe. And I know resilient can mean the same as safe at times, but it has a different connotation. And with the natural disasters we've had and the emphasis on resilience, I think it would read better if it was infrastructure to build a safe, resilient, prosperous and welcoming community. And then at the end of that ad, that protects our environment and natural beauty, or whilst protecting our environment and natural beauty. I know it expands it a bit, but it brings in the environment, it brings in resilience. And if we go back to the word map, the word environment is probably, and natural is the biggest on that word map. So I think that our vision probably should encompass those two aspects. That's just food for thought. But I'd like to move an amendment that we look at varying the vision to include those comments. If I get a second.
So if we have point 3.
And I'm happy to consider them separately because I think they should be considered as separate amendments. So one's an amendment and one's a foreshadowed amendment. Or
could it be incorporated in the...
Or it could be incorporated into the motion if the mover and seconder...
No, a new amendment would be item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
That's the amendment. Yeah?
Yeah, but I'd rather them to be discussed and considered separately rather than together. Because I believe that they are completely separate.
So what we can do is discuss item 3 and put, 4, which was...
Workshop.
The workshop thing, the workshop item. And first of all, I asked the mover if they are happy to incorporate that label. No, the general manager would like to say something first, and then I'll ask.
Yeah, to make just a couple of comments. Councillor Morris makes a good point about the new council. That's actually already built into the induction program with the new council for us to actually have a workshop with them and however many they then choose on the CSP. So they will definitely be involved before it is finalised. So that's actually built into what the new council will actually be doing over that first 4 to 6 weeks. So I don't believe there's any real need for that. It literally is already programmed in. The reason we're putting this out, I guess, for that 10-week period is to get comments like the individual councillors may have and things like that. It's very hard to formulate a vision sitting around a council chamber like this to try and formulate and reformulate that. Aspects such as the environment are picked up in there where it talks about the mountain to the sea. There's opportunity, safe, all those things. Putting it out allows the community, allows councillors as individuals to make submissions, and that can actually be encouraged and will be encouraged. And then the new council can then have a really good look at it as well. At the end of the day, it's up to the council whether they accept Councillor Morris's points 4 and 5.
Make a comment?
Yes, Councillor.
I guess I'm asking a question because while I do think that resilient is a really important word and makes sense in a vision statement given what we've been going on, I thought that the recommendation we're discussing today is really sort of noting that we're going through a process rather than actually working on the plan. But I do take the point of resilience and I really rather like it, but I think that this is not the place to work it into the recommendation as an amendment, but we should just take it on board to work with it as we have, as individuals, the opportunity to also be engaged in the feedback for the plan.
But the reason why I brought that one up, Madam Mayor, is because that's the only component of the plan that we have got visibility of. And I felt quite strongly that we needed to add the word resilient and do the rest. So I still will put it up as an amendment. If it gets defeated, it gets defeated. I'm happy.
Madam Mayor, I move we go into workshop, please.
General Manager is...
Thank you, Councillor Horval. Councillor Horval has moved that we go into workshop. Do I have a seconder for it to go into workshop? And that's lapsed. Councillor Horval, that has lapsed. So we're not in workshop.
We deal with it one amendment at a time.
Yes, we are going to deal with one amendment at a time. So we have the first amendment that notes that the new council will be required. No, it hasn't. We haven't got it up yet. While that's coming up.
Or is there a requirement for the first amendment considering the General Manager's comments?
I think that with the General Manager's comment, I was considering removing or removing it, but I think that it's probably worthwhile putting it there so that because there's got to be 3 to 4 new councillors. So I think it's worthwhile flagging it so that the new councillors realise that they should, when it goes on public exhibition, have a look at it, form a view, and then come to the workshop so they'll know that they'll be asked about that. So I think that rather than that they have a workshop, that acknowledge that workshops will be held by the new council to review the CSP during their induction phase.
We add that into the motion then with that we acknowledge.
It might be a given, but I understand what Councillor Morris is saying. Can I just speak for a moment? This community strategic plan is the most important document that we do. And it does involve the community. It is not just something in-house. And the risk you run is, yes, it's going to go out on public exhibition for 10 weeks, but people have to engage in it. Otherwise, they're not going to give the feedback. So I think anything that we can do to assist that council engagement and getting out the inference not only to the community but to our organisation that this community strategic plan is the most important thing that we do.
It drives the delivery plan and operating plan because they have to dovetail to it.
So where we are at is we have a item number 4 on our amendment, which is the acknowledgement that council workshops be undertaken by the new council to review the community strategic plan as part of the induction, even though we know that that's going to happen. Councillor, I need a seconder for a start.
Oh, no, actually second.
Thank you.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Councillor McGinn, you want to say something?
Yes, I was going to ask a question really.
I haven't got, Councillor Morris hasn't spoken to his
well, I was going to ask a question, I suppose referring it to Councillor Morris. I agree with what you're saying. I'm wondering if instead of in point 3, instead of saying endorse, because it sounds like you're rubber stamping, that it's that part 3 that talks about the process where the new council will be workshopping and inputting into the final plan before endorsing it by 30th of June. Before adopting. So I think the problem that Councillor Councillor Morris is having is the word endorse. And I agree when I first read this that endorse makes it sound like the new council is just going to rubber stamp something that's going to be workshopped. So I think if there was better wording on point 3 about that process of the new council.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to now move that we're going to workshop so that we can discuss this in a bit more detail.
Thank you, Councillor. Morris has moved that we go into workshop. It's been seconded by Councillor McGinn. Is there any...
Point of order, Chair.
Yes.
Could we postpone this till after the...
No, we've got till 9:15.
Citizens there.
At 10:15 we're doing the citizenship
All right.
as per the order of business that we've adopted. Okay, we can suspend standing orders when we get to that. So, is there any dissent in going into workshop? There's no dissent. We're now into workshop. Thank you. Okay, it's all yours, Councillor Morris.
Madam Mayor, when I read the word endorse, it rang alarm bells for me, and I've actually spoken to a couple of the candidates, and they had the same alarm bells, and they wanted to be able to review it. So that's why I brought up the amendment that council that has workshops with them. General Manager says it's already happening. Whether we morph that into 3 and get rid of endorse and do it, or leave it as it is, I don't really think makes a lot of difference.
Can we get rid of
at least
endorse?
need to investigate and look at what the possible words could be.
Adopt.
Madam Mayor, can I just point out that the legislation actually says that the council endorse the CSP.
Okay.
So if the legislation says that, I would suggest we probably leave it as we probably leave it as 3 and 4, and acknowledge that there'll be workshops where they have the opportunity to review and provide input into it.
May I suggest, since we're in workshop, how about point 3 becomes point 4, because it's obviously the finality of the endorsement of the plan, and that a new point 3 be written, which is the process,
Okay,
the mechanism by which we'll discuss it.
we'll take that. Now, while we're in workshop, do we want to discuss item number 5 before, so that we can go back and...
Madam Mayor, I'd also...
And in fact, it's not workshop. What is it called, actually?
Committee of the Whole.
Committee of the Whole. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Horval. I got in first. Yes, Councillor Morris. What would you like to do on that?
Well, there is a draft vision to include resilience and environment, is what's up there at the moment. I also had a little bit more than just that. At the end, I said that protects or values our environment and natural beauty is what I actually thought of for the end of it. But rather than saying that we vary it, say that the council reviews the vision to include the word resilient and greater recognition of the environment.
How about consider?
Well,
Because it's just use the word consider.
Review doesn't mean it has to happen. Review means
True.
they look at it, they consider it, and they may say, no, we're not going to. Because at the moment, I think that does need to be looked at in that context and possibly be reviewed and changed before it goes out on initial public exhibition. Hear what the General Manager said, how from the mountains to the sea is about environment, but I think we need to spell it out more clearly. Particularly
I'll just make comment from the General Manager.
About those issues.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. We just want to check the wording 4.5, and I understand what Councillor Morris is saying now is that staff consider the inclusion of words such as resilience and environment prior to this being placed on draft exhibition.
Yes.
Resilient environment, and I'd like the word natural beauty included. There's an awful lot of talk and a lot of stuff in that natural beauty.
That's what we start to consider.
Just a moment, Councillor Shields.
Oh, I agree with the sentiment, but I feel like we're wordsmithing the vision statement right here as our last meeting, where isn't that the opportunity for public exhibition and why it's on public exhibition for such a long period? Whilst I agree with some of the comments, I think that will come out through new councillor input through the new term and also through the community.
Can I just add to that? I think if I just point councillors to page 33, the stakeholder engagement. It's been over 1,500 residents participate in this process to get to this stage. It's been from their words that this has actually really been pulled around to that, and certainly be wonderful to get another 1,500 responses from the community while this is on exhibition as well. So we don't know what it's going to look like. A word such as resilience, for example, it's something that we hear so frequently, so often across the entire country now. I can tell you I've never lived in a more resilient community than the Macleay Valley. It is second to none. It is just absolutely amazing. It's not something you have to create; it's already there, and it's a land to I think every other community around the country. It's a phenomenal community. So it will be obviously. This will go through a process. The new council will look at it. The new council will end up endorsing what it is. At the end of the day, we will implement what you decide today. We will still implement that.
But Madam Mayor, I'd like to foreshadow a motion that 9.5 is the motion as is 1, 2 and 3. Thank you.
So,
Yep, that's fine.
I think freeze.
That's fine.
we're still in committee of the whole. We do you want to still
is an
deal
amendment
with
that needs to
it?
be considered by the council.
Yes. Do you still want to deal with
Yes.
it in two separate lots?
Well, we've already dealt with the first one and it's been incorporated into the motion.
Correct.
So it's now 0.5 as an amendment, and you've got a foreshadowed motion, which is to go back to the original motion.
Okay. General Manager, could you like to comment?
Yeah, look, through you, Madam Mayor, the what's in there in 1 to 5, the staff will look at that and will consider that prior to placing it on exhibition. And certainly, as we've highlighted, the workshops will be occurring with the new council anyway. And we do look forward to the public's interaction with this over this extended period of time. So I don't perceive any issues with how it's written there as 1 to 5.
So you can live with it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Councillor Horville has his light on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A question to the General Manager, if I may, Madam Mayor. In the strategic plan and the review, which the draft we haven't yet seen, but I'm assured it's exactly what's in the report. Is there any reference to the character statements? Because we went through a long process of getting character statements for each area of the Shire.
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, Councillor Hall is correct. And I believe there is reference to the character statements and the long-term, the local strategic planning statements in the draft, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Morris.
Oh,
I have no lights on. No one wants to speak. No one wants to do anything. Thank you, Councillor Shields. We'll now move out of Committee of Whole and move back into Open Council. It's been moved by Shields and seconded by Councillor McGinn. Do I have any dissent? So has the mover accepted that into the motion, which is Councillor Saul?
The actual amendment will be incorporated to the motion. Is that correct, Madam Mayor?
You can accept what we have on there into the motion.
Well, then I shall do so.
Thank you. So we're now back into Open Council. But I do have a foreshadowed motion, I believe. So if this gets lost...
Madam Mayor, I'd withdraw that.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. So we're in Council. I have no lights on. Is there any dissent on the recommendation? Thank you, councillors. That's been moved unanimously. Thank you very much. And we're running a wee bit early, but I think all our citizenship know we're good to go. I am now going to suspend standing orders so that we can have our citizenship ceremony. And to Chambers this morning, I extend a very warm welcome to Pat Conahan, MP, federal member for Cowper. Welcome, Pat. And he'll be assisting me in today's ceremony and welcoming our new Australian citizens. So we'll just take a minute to get set up because we've had to change everything. Do I need my anything?
Madam Mayor, could I ask if the cameras will be focusing on the ceremony, please?
Councillor Hovell, the cameras will be focused on the ceremony.
Thank you.
It's now my pleasure to welcome our citizens candidates who will be joining us soon in becoming Kempsey Shire newest Australian citizens. As it is tradition, we are now including an acknowledgement of country. So on behalf of all present, I acknowledge the Dunghutti people, the original inhabitants of this ancient land, and pay respect to the elders and Aboriginal people of the past, present and emerging. And I now invite Pat Conahan, MP, to the stage to deliver the special message to our candidates from the Honourable Alexander Hawke, MP, Minister for Immigration, Citizenship, Migration, Migrant Services and Multicultural Affairs. Thank you. You don't need my little stool.
No, I don't need your stool there. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and welcome everybody. And I too acknowledge the traditional custodians, the Dunghutti and Thunghutti people, and welcome you all here today. And if you don't know, I am a Kempsey boy born and bred. Kempsey is very, very close to my heart. I love it, and I know that you too will love it as Australian citizens. But it's my duty today to deliver the message from the Honourable Alex Hawke MP, Minister for Immigration, Citizenship, Migrant Services and Multicultural Affairs. Today, you become Australian citizens. We are immensely proud of what we have achieved as a nation, and we welcome you in joining us. Our history and culture has been forged over thousands of years, first through Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and more recently with people from all corners of the earth. Australia has succeeded as a nation by embracing and defending our national values. We believe in the freedom and dignity of each individual, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and freedom of association. We value the rule of law, democracy, and equality of opportunity for all people. We stand with other democracies in helping to defend and protect these hard-fought freedoms. We are a resilient nation. Droughts, bushfires, floods, and a global pandemic have challenged our normal way of life. Our social cohesion, a key strength of Australia, has never been more important. Upon taking the pledge of commitment today, I call on you to embrace these values and the rights and responsibilities of Australian citizenship. I ask you to play an active part in your local communities to build an even stronger nation. So on behalf of the Australian Government, I congratulate you and I welcome you on reaching this very special day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat. And it's also my pleasure to say congratulations and welcome to our citizen candidates on behalf of the Kempsey Shire community, and to read to you the Australian Citizenship Preamble. And the Australian Citizenship Preamble states, Australian citizenship represents full and formal membership of the community of the Commonwealth of Australia. And Australian citizenship is a common bond involving reciprocal rights and obligations, uniting all Australians while respecting their diversity. Persons on whom Australian citizenship is conferred also enjoy these rights and undertake to accept these obligations by pledging loyalty to Australia and its people and by sharing their democratic beliefs, and by respecting their rights and liberties, and by upholding and obeying the laws of Australia. So if citizens candidates taking the pledge, one, under God, please stand. I think we have one that is doing that. If you wish to take the pledge on a holy book, hold it in your hands. The words of the pledge are set out on your pledge cards. In order to become an Australian citizen, you need to say loud and clear after me the pledge. From this time forward under God, I pledge my loyalty to Australia and its people, whose democratic beliefs I share, whose rights and liberties I respect, and whose laws I will uphold and obey. Thank you. You may sit down now. Would citizen candidates making pledge number 2 please stand? The words of the pledge are set out on your pledge card also, and so in order to become an Australian citizen, please loud and clear after me repeat. From this time forward, I pledge my loyalty to Australia and its people, whose democratic beliefs I share, whose rights and liberties I respect, whose laws I will uphold and obey. Thank you. You may sit, and as your name is called, each candidate who has now made the pledge can come forward and receive their Australian citizenship certificate, as well as a small welcome gift. And I'd ask Pat Conahan if he would come up and give the certificates to our candidates. The next certificate first.
Yep.
And their names are there. And
David Behera.
I think due to COVID, at this stage, we won't shake hands. We might just nod. or do the Aussie thing.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Naomi Behera. Patricia Milkey. Ian Dick.
It seems really weird not shaking hands.
It's done.
Some people don't.
Ishbel Keenan. Prasanth Manikathan Palouse.
We'll keep the family together. Okay, so that's our fun.
Shireen Chakalatal Jose. And Anna Prasanth and Ami Prasanth.
Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. We welcome you as citizens of Australia and congratulations on your decision to become an Australian citizen. Choosing to become a citizen is a very significant expression of your pride in being part of Australia. It is a symbol of your commitment to Australia and its values. You now hold formal membership into the Australian community and the right to call yourself Australian. Or I'm sure at some times you'll probably call yourself an Aussie. So if the new citizens of Australia could please stand, and if everyone could join me in a round of applause to welcome you into the Australian family. Please stand. And if you like, you can please stay standing, because it's tradition in these chambers when we do a citizenship ceremony for all Australian citizens that are here today to reaffirm our allegiance to our country. So if you could please all stand and join with me in reaffirming our citizenship by saying together the affirmation and remain standing for the national anthem. And I think the affirmation is coming up somewhere, but if not, you can say it after me. As an Australian citizen, I affirm my loyalty to Australia and its people, whose democratic beliefs I share, whose rights and liberties I respect, and whose laws I uphold and obey. We will now have the national anthem. So thank you, everybody, and I now invite any of the guests to join us for morning tea, and please take the time to get to know one another and enjoy the hospitality, and we welcome you again as the newest Australian citizens that we have in the Valley. Thank you.
Just for the councillors, the council meeting will resume at 10:50.
Thank you, councillors. Call to order. We're now resuming standing orders. We have our presentation from our auditors. I think we have Giro Fitzgerald and Kevin Frangie on the line, and Kevin's not there yet, but Giro is. And I will get Director Mitchell to present and introduce our guests.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As is normal custom, practice and legislatively required, we have our financial statements audited annually, and part of that process is that we publicly notify that the financial statements have been completed. They've already been lodged to the Office of Local Government once the audit was concluded, and then we are fortunate to have our auditors who come along and present those financial statements and the results to council. And are available for any questions. So I think for a start, we've got Giro, who's from the Audit Office New South Wales, will take us through a few slides up front. And I think Daniel's got a slide presentation to share. And then we've got Kevin Frangie, who's the audit partner from TNR, who did all the field work, who will then walk through some of the other parts of the audit that's just been completed. So over to you, Giro.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Mayor and councillors. Thanks for allowing us firstly to present our report on the conduct of the audit. As Stephen mentioned, Kevin Frangie from TNR will take you through that. But just before we get to that, I'd just like to take you through just a few slides here that I guess just documents what the Auditor General and the Audit Office have focused on in the last round of audits, and also what we're looking at going forward in the coming years. I guess the first thing I wanted to say and acknowledge is that our Auditor General has been really impressed with how organisations like yours have actually adjusted to the challenges that have been presented in the last year, not only COVID, but also the floods, etc., and council's ability to be able to deliver on the essential services for its communities and constituents has been really impressive. So we certainly don't. We understand that it was a very, very challenging environment for your council in particular in the past year. So I'd like to thank council and the finance team in particular for ensuring that the audit just progressed, and thank them for the support for the audit progress and getting to this conclusion. So our audit this year in the sector covered 134 councils. We identified some challenges that we'll report in our sector report, which will come out sometime in January, hopefully. And some of the issues that, and I guess challenges that we identified related to asset management and the valuation process. So that's not just for the local government sector, it's similar across state sector agencies as well. There are errors around valuations, and there are also issues with asset registers. We also look at IT controls in each council. So we identified some issues there that will feature in our report. So the areas that we would have looked at would be user access management, data management, and cybersecurity as well. It's obviously a very topical item in the last couple of years. Another area we looked at was the impact of the new accounting standards. So the one that potentially could have had an impact across the sector would have been on service concession arrangements, but it turned out it didn't really have any impact for most councils, including Kempsey. I guess then the report will also just highlight some areas the councils could focus on going forward that might make things a little bit easier, and I guess identify any issues earlier. So probably the main one would be trying to bring forward asset valuations. It's usually the biggest piece of work with any council. So that's certainly an area that we're willing to explore with councils to how we could best do that. And obviously subject to councils' other requirements and operational demands during the year on their time. If I could get you to just move to the next slide. So the one on the annual work programme. So the annual work programme was published by our Auditor General last July. So that covers not only 2021-22, but also the outer years as well. The work programme explains how our Auditor General and how our office decides on what areas we think warrant focus in the coming years, and it also explains how we decide particular topics, and as I said, outlines what we intend to cover, not only for local government but across the state sector as well. I know that this particular programme was established at a particularly challenging time, especially for the council or the local government area, considering the various natural disasters, emergency events that have happened in the past year. No surprise then that this year's programme has a heavy focus on government's responses to those emergency events. As you can see from this slide, we're taking a phased approach to the audit. So initially we'll be focusing more on the response of government to those events. So that will not only be at the council level, but also at the state level. And it also allows us some flexibility to, I guess, revise parts of that programme as issues emerge. Also, it will allow some suggestions, I guess, from key stakeholders across the sector, and also if there are any areas of public interest. And our financial audits, which is obviously very specific and focusing more on the numbers, will also focus on the financial implications stemming from those emergency events. We will also look at changes in the control environment across councils, and also looking at, sorry, I just get rid of that. So also we'll focus on how councils assign accountability for the delivery of new and expanded programs as a result of emergency events, and also looking at risks from staff working from home. So also just to take you through just what performance audits we've got planned in the coming year. So performance audits is a little bit different from the financial audit. So it's a different area within our organisation, but it focuses more on economy, effectiveness and efficiency of particular programs or particular aspects of councils or state organisations. So that piece of work will focus on COVID-19 and the intensive learning support program. So that audit is actually underway, so it should be tabled in Parliament within, I would imagine, the next 6 months or so. So I'll certainly keep Council and Finance updated on when that will be released, and also the Audit and Risk Improvement Committee. We're also going to be looking at bushfire recovery grants, RFS preparedness, and virtual healthcare. If you could move just to the next slide, please. In 2021-22, we've got some planned performance audits on the effectiveness of financial management and governance in selected councils. We haven't selected what councils will form part of that audit yet, but there'll be at least one. And it'll under the Local Government Act, council must apply sound financial management principles. So that audit will look at some aspects of that and how well those selected councils have done in that area. It also has the potential of looking at the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment and bringing them into that audit. As you know, they're responsible for regulation and legislative investigative functions within the local government sectors. So potentially we'll look at how well that department supports local government in those areas. There's also a performance audit underway on business continuity planning and service planning in 2 local councils. So those 2 local councils are Bega Valley and Snowy Valley councils. So that again should be tabled within the next 6 months or so. And again, I'll update council on that. There's a number of other audits. I'll just very briefly skip through them, but it's e-planning portal. So if you've got development applications and you interact with the department's e-planning portal, which most councils, I think all councils are actually mandated to do, so there will be a performance audit in that area. We'll also be looking at building regulations, specifically around combustible cladding. And then in the outer years, we'll be looking at cybersecurity precinct planning and some aspects of road asset maintenance, and also how councils are managing their codes of conduct. And just the last slide, please. So our 2020-21 local government sector report, as I mentioned earlier, covers all the council's financial audits for 2021. So we'll be reporting those results for the June 21 audits in around about late January. So just a couple of months away. As mentioned, there are some key findings coming out of those reports, and there are some themes that are coming through in that as well. So they will incorporate findings across the state, and also there's a particular focus area, not just the financial audit results, but we're also looking at cybersecurity and across council. So looking at, I guess, how well councils respond to cybersecurity risks, and if there are any incidents in particular councils during the year. So we also look at how those risks are incorporated into council's risk management process. And also, as mentioned earlier, we'll continue to look at IT general controls. They're pretty important. Our focus mostly is in the area of the financial statements and the financial systems that support that process. So it is a bit of a narrow focus, but we'll be covering IT governance, access to programs and data, security, and how well IT change management happens or occurs in council. And I think that's pretty much it. So once the report is finalized, we normally look at what themes, findings come out of that, and then try and develop some themes and areas of focus in the coming year. So in the past year, that's how we would have come to the conclusion that cybersecurity was an area that warranted some attention. So we'll similarly explore those findings and come up with some topics that we believe would be of interest to the sector in the coming year. So I might just pass you over to Kevin Franey from TNR to take you through the report on the conduct of the financial audit. Thank you.
Thanks, Garo, and thanks, councillors, for having us in the meeting today. It's good to see you all back in the chamber. So I'm going to cover off the financial aspects of the audit and provide an overview of some of the performance measures. Before I commence, I'd like to thank Steve and his finance team for assisting with the audit under testing conditions with COVID and other things going on in the background, floods, you name it. So thank you to those people. The audit has been finalised. The financial reports have been signed off on, and it's pleasing to know that Council has received an unmodified audit opinion on the general purpose financial reports and the special purpose financial reports, which cover the business activities under the National Competition Policy. In addition to that, the audit also required us to audit roads to recovery, the local roads and community improvements program, pensioner rebates, notional yield calculations, a range of things that are behind the scenes, in addition to auditing the financial reports, and they all went through unmodified and lodged on time, which is a great result. First slide, if I could, focuses on the income statement. Now, this income statement, it relates to your general purpose financial statements, and it covers the consolidated activities of council. And when I say the consolidated activities, I mean the general fund, the water fund and the sewer fund, and domestic waste management. I'm going to sort of cover off on the consolidated performance of the council, but I'll also give you a bit of an insight on as to what's happening in general fund as well. General fund is the fund that's under the most pressure because it's subject to rate pegging. Water and sewer aren't subject to rate pegging, and as a result, they tend to have a little bit less pressure on them, and can recover their costs in a much easier manner than general fund. So that the slide in front of you there gives you a snapshot of some of the major movements in the income statement. If we look at the bottom two lines, the operating result from continuing operations, including capital grants and contributions, is 21.1 million compared to 6.5 million in the prior year. So why has that increased so much? Well, as you'd expect, rates and annual charges increase in line with rate pegging and other special variations that come through. Your user charges are reviewed each year, so they've gone up a little bit. Grants and contributions is where it all really happened in the current year with bushfire, flood, and also increase in development activity. So developer contributions coming into council's coffers, 36 million compared to 29.4 million in the prior year. Depreciation expense, it's gone down slightly because last year we undertook the revaluation of the roads network, and the useful lives were reassessed under that revaluation process. So depreciation is reduced by around about $3.7 million. So if you look at those four items, rates and annual charges, user charges, grants and contributions revenue, and depreciation expense, that largely makes up that $14 odd million increase in the operating result from continuing operations. So that includes capital grants and contributions, developer contributions, etc. Probably the most important line is the bottom line, and that's the operating result before we account for capital grants and contributions. And that shows a break-even result. So a $700,000 loss compared to an $8.1 million loss in the prior year. So that's a pretty good result on a consolidated basis. We can break even. That means we're funding our depreciation, we're repaying our debt, and hopefully putting aside a little bit of cash to replace our assets in the future. If we drill down underneath that, probably just go back that slide if that's okay. That 0.7 million break-even result, what makes that up is obviously water, sewer and general fund, and general fund returned a loss of $2.3 million. So that's an area that I know that the management team are well and truly across. That is something that's not unusual for local government, but the aim obviously is to get general fund into a surplus so that it can replace its assets and repay its debt. Water fund had a small loss of $1 million and sewer fund had a profit of $2.6 million. So between the three of them, that comes back to that $0.7 million result before capital grants and contributions. So take out messages from that is general fund and getting it into a surplus position. Next slide, please. If we move to the balance sheet, again, on a consolidated basis, we have $88 million cash and investments under management, and this compares to $55 million in the prior year. So that cash and investments balance comprises external restrictions, internally restricted cash and investments, and unrestricted cash and investments. So you can see the biggest increase is attributing to the movement from 55 to 88 is in your external restrictions. And again, that's largely comprised of movements in water and sewer fund and developer contributions coming in. Now, externally restricted means exactly that. They're restricted by legislation. They can only be spent in those areas and doesn't really help general fund too much. The internal restrictions are available via council resolution to spend on certain areas. So that's improved in that space there. Externally restricted cash and investments is around about $9 million. Unrestricted cash and investments is around about $9 million. Next slide, please. So your key performance ratios. Every council has these key performance ratios to be measured on, And the thing that you need to bear in mind with ratios is that you should look at some of them over a longer term. So if we just dive into them, we'll touch on that. The operating performance ratio. So that's the measure of how well council contains its expenditure within its operating revenue, excluding capital grants and contributions. And you can see there that's a pleasing result. In the 2021 year, we've met the benchmark, which is a break-even position. And that shows that we're managing our expenses within our recurrent revenue. So a good result for 2021. Over to the next one, own source operating revenue. This tells us how much revenue we're deriving from rates, annual charges and user charges, and not being reliant on grants and contributions to fund our activities. So we've always exceeded the 60% own source operating revenue ratio. It is declining a little bit, but that's largely due to the amount of grants and contributions we've been receiving, which dilutes that a little bit. Nevertheless, it's something to continue to focus on to ensure that our own source revenue, and particularly around probably general fund, exceeds that 60%, so that we remain sustainable in our own right. The unrestricted current ratio is a liquidity measure, and it obviously measures our ability to pay our debts as and when they fall due. So the unrestricted current ratio is quite healthy, so that's around about 2.7. So that means we've got $2.70 in current assets, liquid current assets, for every $1 in liability. If we look at general fund, it's exactly the same as that, 2.71, and that means that we're in a good position in general fund as well. Next slide. Debt service cover ratio. This ratio measures how well we can repay our debt as and when they fall due. It measures the operating cash to service debt, including interest, principal and lease payments. So the benchmark is set at more than 2 times, and we well and truly cover that because we've got increased cash and other assets on hand to enable us to repay our debt. So a good result for that one. The general fund debt service ratio is 11.22 compared to 7.22 in the prior year. So again, in a good position in relation to the debt service ratio for general fund. Rates and annual charges outstanding measures how well we're collecting our rates and annual charges. Quite often difficult depending on economic conditions in a regional area, particularly with natural disasters like floods and bushfires and drought. The benchmark is set at 10%. And yes, as you can see there, aside from last year, we're under that. And that's a pretty good result considering the conditions that we've been going through. So obviously management team have been working hard to ensure that the cash flow is maintained there. Could it be lower? Yes, it probably could be. And I guess that's something for council to consider. Most of our councils lie around that, probably around that 5, 6 to 8%. The very good ones are down around the 4%. But it's a balancing act in relation to the demographics and of your ratepayer base as well. The cash expense cover ratio, that measures how much cash we have on hand if we needed to draw on that if activities ceased. The ratio that or the benchmark that the OLG sets is around about 3 months worth of cash. As you can see, we're well and truly in excess of that particular benchmark. Again, a good result. In relation to that particular ratio for general fund, we have 7.5 months worth of cash available should activities cease and we need to draw down on that cash. Next slide, please.
Sorry, there might just be a little bit of delay in the Teams presentation.
Okay.
Might go back. My apologies, it's not progressing. I might just stop sharing the slides and share them again.
Okay.
There you go.
Nice work. Excellent. Thank you. So infrastructure, property, plant and equipment and renewals is obviously the largest part of council's responsibilities. We have a significant amount of infrastructure under our management, and asset management is obviously of the highest importance, and there's been a lot of work done in that space over the years. One of the things that council is measured on is the asset renewal ratio. So how well are we replacing our assets compared to how quickly they're being depreciated? This is a ratio that should be looked at over a period of time, because we do recognise that council's budgets can fluctuate in this space, but the idea is to try and keep it as close as you can to renewing your assets as quickly as they depreciate, so that we have enough, so that we keep our assets at a satisfactory level in relation to what we agree with our ratepayers. So the current year, just back to that slide if you can, thanks. Yeah, the current year's renewal expenditure was $10.6 million compared to $18.9 million. That is under our depreciation expense. So that's an area that I know that the management team are aware of, and continues to be a challenge for council moving forward. Other matters for discussion in relation to the financial report. In our closing report and our report on the conduct of the audit, we mentioned some areas that are considered to be significant issues. One of those is rural firefighting equipment, not recognised in the financial statements. There's a number of councils throughout the state, you're not on your own here, who aren't recognising largely the Red Fleet vehicles. The Office of Local Government and Treasury and the Rural Fire Service have deemed that local government does control those assets. So there needs to be some consideration given to that moving forward, recognising those assets and bringing them into account. Now, they're not that material to the financial report of Kempsey Shire Council, so there is no qualification on the financial report for not recognising these assets. But we are recommending that you do bring them on and recognise them. I think a lot of councils have got the view that they don't control them, and I guess that's something that needs to be discussed and managed moving forward. Next slide, please. The revaluation side of things. This year we had a revaluation of a number of smaller classes of assets. So it was community land improvements, open space / recreational assets. There was a prior period adjustment recognised for assets that hadn't been brought to account previously, around about $7.6 million. Not a massive number considering the amount of assets you've got under your control, but it is above the materiality threshold of the audit, and as a result that needs to be brought to account as a prior period error. I guess the reason why these were found largely in relation to these assets is because of improved asset management practices when compared to the revaluation that was done 5 years ago. There's been a lot of work done around the geospatial mapping processes, identification of individual parcels of land, and just general identification of controlled assets, full stop. So that's a good result in that regard, that we've got our assets, asset management practices in these areas very much improved. But it's not ideal to continue to find found assets, and we hope that will abate moving forward. We have made some recommendations in our management letter to just improve that revaluation process, better communication between the asset management team and the finance team, improved quality control review processes, and I guess moving some of the duties around asset management and accounting to throughout the year rather than leaving till closer to the end of the year and creating bottlenecks around the financial reporting process. And we've had discussions with the management team around that, and there's action taking place to rectify that particular matter. So, Madam Mayor, that covers the core issues arising from the financial audit report or the financial auditing process. And I hope that's giving you an understanding of where Council sits in relation to its finances, a very high level overview. I'm happy to answer any questions in relation to the audit process or some of the numbers that I've talked about today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Franny. I do have Councillor Baxter has his light on, and then I'll take Councillor Horville.
Thank you, Chair. Kevin, just going back to your first graph there, operating performance ratio. The first one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you've got us at in the above the performing the benchmark, 2% above the benchmark. Page 4 to fellow councillors of the attachment. Oh, there it is. Kevin, General Manager made a lot of effort to stop me complimenting the Director of Finance over there. I've done a little bit of searching through back at 2014. That if you can imagine it, that graph had a negative figure of minus 40%. 40%. So what I'm asking, Kevin, is would you say that result there, that positive result, has got us in a very good situation, especially compared to 2014?
Good observation. Yeah, there's been a real struggle over the prior years to get yourselves into that position. Remember, that is on a consolidated basis, but nevertheless, when you look at that operating performance ratio for general fund, it's actually a little bit higher than that. So that's a good result. That gets us in a good short-term position. If we're in a position where we're returning, I guess, a surplus from that operating performance ratio, that allows us to build funds to tackle the asset management issues that we have, that every council has. So obviously the goal is to continue that surplus into the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. Councillor Horville, and then I'll take Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Baxter, for that question. But I think it kind of follows on with my question. Councillor, Mr. Franey, you probably are aware of the not fit for the future process that went on, and we are a special council and we have found twice not to be fit for the future. Under these figures and your audit, would we now be considered to be fit for the future?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, that's a very good question, Councillor Horville. I'd have to go back and revisit all of the measures arising from the Fit for the Future, I guess, regime, but these performance ratios are certainly based on that Fit for the Future framework. So the answer to that is possibly yes and no. In a short term, yes. You are finding yourselves to be either profitable or close to profitable under the measures for local government before capital grants and contributions. So that's a positive outcome. But the challenges lie in the asset management side of things, your asset renewals ratio, the amount of backlog and the state of your assets relating to that backlog. So I see that as being one of the key challenges under that Fit for the Future regime.
Thank you very much. My other question is about the appreciation of assets, and the state government committee investigating reclassification of roads has deemed that the Kempsey Armadale Road will become a regional road and become a total asset of New South Wales government. At what point can our financial experts, and we have some, say that we are no longer depreciating that road?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I obviously from an auditing perspective and a financial reporting perspective, once you get the official approval that has been handed over, then that will go off your books. That will be a contribution back to the state government, and you'll stop depreciating that. I'm not sure whether you've received that notice yet.
No, I thought the announcement might be enough, but the announcement needs a handover of keys or some procedure. Thank you very much.
Correct.
Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Pardon me, sir, just asking, you stated you had 134 councils under your audit. How many of those councils balance their budgets, sir?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's a very good question. When you say balance their budgets, return a surplus or a break-even result for general fund?
Yes, that's correct.
I couldn't give you the exact number, but a lot of them are finding that they're in a position around that break-even mark. I might have to come back to the Director of Finance there and provide some numbers perhaps, or perhaps the Director of Finance can provide the council with some indication of where you sit in relation to general fund and the result.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm just adding to what Kevin's just said. Once all of the councils submit their financial statements, and so not all of them are, despite having 31st of October lodgement dates, some are still outstanding. Once that's done, there generally is a lot of benchmarking data that then becomes available, and we can provide a report or a briefing to councillors in terms of how the whole sector looks, if you like, in terms of their financial performance and where we sit in relation to that.
Thank you for that.
There's no more lights on. I believe there's no more questions. So thank you very much for presenting our financial reports to us in such a way that was very clear for everyone to understand. So we thank you again.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, General Manager and councillors.
Thank you, everyone.
Madam Mayor, can I move that recommendation?
I don't know that we're up to that one yet. Oh, it's out of order.
Yes.
We're going back to
9.6.
9.6, I believe, is the Australia Day, which was removed from the...
So Councillor Hall.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I will have to leave the meeting now and I'll wait recall. I wish you well in consideration of the matter. Thank you.
Just to make it clear, there's no impediment for Councillor McGinn and Councillor Campbell to stay in the room and vote on this. It's just the same as any other committee. Is that correct? That's correct.
That's correct.
Just so that people are aware. Councillor Morris has his light on.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move the recommendation with a small change. And
yes.
And that small change is that we say it is until February 2022 instead of 2021, which is in the past.
I think that would probably be really acceptable, Councillor Morris. And if you're happy to move that.
And I'll second it.
Councillor McGinn.
I'm going to move it.
Yes.
So I move it with a small change. That's the only reason I withdrew it.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Saul. All right.
Just a question.
Yes, certainly.
If it happens that another candidate is elected as the mayor, they would have every right to attend that meeting from their point of election, because the mayor can attend any committee meeting, and that would provide some form of continuity if that was to occur.
That's correct.
So that doesn't need to be added, because that is an automatic thing that happens. But yeah, I withdrew it to change it to 2022 instead of 2021.
Okay. That's correct.
It's there in two cases.
And, any dissent on the recommendation? There's no dissent. That's been carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. We now go on to
Just if you give me a moment to bring Councillor Hall back in.
9.8, which is the dog walking.
Madam Mayor, I withdrew that and I'm happy to move it with a small change.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll just wait till Councillor Hawthorne comes in, but if you'd just like to outline the small change, that would be good.
The small change is that an extra dot point.
Okay, he's back.
That council continues to lobby in conjunction with the Crescent Head Dog and Walkers Group appropriate authorities to enhance dog access to beaches. And a fourth point is that council actively promotes the community engagement aspects of the reviews to the master plans for the two national parks, for Hat Head and for Goolawah National Parks. As Ms Easton said last night, there seems to be a lot of people that weren't aware that that was happening. I think it would be beneficial for the community interest in that area if council was reasonably proactive in getting that out and encouraging people to participate in that public consultation.
I'm just going to wait till Mr. Thorogood catches up, and I think I'd just like to get a comment from the General Manager around managing. We need to also manage our relationship with national parks. I know they want to come and talk to the new council, and particularly around that, when they're doing their plan of management, that relationship needs to be in sync, I think, so that we can.
But part of that relationship could be council offering to support putting it out to the community and getting better community engagement. Yeah, you could put it on your say, Macleay, from the other agency to get more community involvement.
No, I just think that I don't know how we've got it. It's a bit wordy, I think. But anyway,
yeah, it could be more there. But they weren't written out. They've just spoken off the top of my head with a couple of dot points. But I think both issues, we should continue to lobby and we should be assisting in the public consultation.
We've just put those up there. We've tried to capture the basic. It might not be exactly the wording you used, Councillor Morris.
Yeah. But that we need to continue to lobby the relevant government agencies in conjunction with the Crescent Head Dog Walkers Group to enhance dog access and actively promote the National Parks and Wildlife Plans of Management when they are on exhibition. The last one clearly is
just clarify.
Or actively communicate.
And I say actively communicates, not promotes, because it may actually be at loggerheads with the outcome that we would want. So it's important that it's identified that it is in fact their plan, but we can facilitate comments on it.
Just if I could just clarify in point 3, active continue to lobby relevant government agencies. We are continuing to participate in meetings and those sorts of things. That I should make it clear as well. The state government, National Parks and Wildlife Service, have made their position very, very clear, and they've made it very clear that they will not be moving from that position as well. So, in terms of National Parks and Wildlife, while we can continue to lobby, I would not want to raise anyone's expectations about the outcome of that. There is the National Parks and Wildlife Association, which is the meeting in a few weeks' time that the Mayor and our staff will be attending, along with the Dog Walkers Association. They may have some influence on that process, but National Parks certainly have made their position very, very clear.
And we do say they're government agencies. Do we like the word lobby, or are you happy with that? Advocate.
Yeah, advocate. It's the intention that we need to get there, and I believe we still need to continue to work with that association or that organisation for the community benefit. And no.
Councillor Horville has his hand up, so that's what you're moving. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor McGinn. Councillor Horville, you have your hand up?
Yes, Madam Mayor. A quick question on the report, if I may, Madam Mayor, please.
We're just waiting to see that we've got this sort of okay, and I don't know that Councillor Morris would like to speak before your question. Do you, Councillor Morris?
Madam Mayor,
He might answer your question, Councillor Horville, so I will get him to speak.
I just want to very briefly point out that, yes, we've done a degree of advocacy and support. National parks we know are not likely to move, but you never know, coming up to March the year after next, there might be some interaction or some changes of mind from some people. If we continue to lobby or continue to advocate for changes, you never know, we might get some direction to National Parks and Wildlife from somewhere else. And we need to make sure that the community is clearly aware that these plans of management are on exhibition when they are, and we need to encourage the community to put in submissions. It's vitally important for the mental health of a lot of people, not just in Crescent Head, but for all those in the area that actually go down to Crescent Head to walk their dogs on the beach. We need to enhance that wherever we can.
100%. Chair.
Just a moment, Councillor Baxter. Councillor Horville's next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question on the report on page 40. It talks about the fourth paragraph down about correspondence with the Minister and so forth. It then says council officers are anticipating making submissions regarding access. When in that wording, is it anticipating or they will be making? Are we definitely going to make sure that we have a submission, or is it just being thought about at the moment, please?
Through Madam Mayor, we will be making a submission.
Well, thank you very much.
Councillor Baxter and then Councillor Patterson.
Just wondering if I could ask the General Manager, was this change that National Parks have brought on, and all of this disruption of people's lives that it's caused, was this a bureaucratic change within the National Parks, or was this a policy change that came from the government itself?
Through Madam Mayor, I think you need to direct that to National Parks and Wildlife. From our understanding, the Minister has made it clear that there's policies and regulations in place for National Parks, and the staff, as with Council, are required to follow those. What is occurring is that they are now enforcing the current policies and legislation as they exist in the state government.
Right.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question through possibly the General Manager is, the National Parks, are they advocating the same restrictions on dog walking in other council areas around it that you guys are in the joint organisation of councils? Are they having the same issues with National Parks?
My understanding is that certainly here on the mid-north coast, the national parks are being consistent with their application of no dogs in national parks. It is consistent. I know it's definitely the case in Port Macquarie, and I believe it is their position across this region for national parks.
So have they been restricting, sorry I missed the earlier on, the speaker yesterday, the meeting, but they're also restricting like seeing eye dogs and dog assistants?
Those animals come under different legislation. They can't restrict seeing eye dogs and assistance dogs because they're under different legislation, which is actually would then be a form of discrimination.
Councillor Horville.
Just interested in whether, following up on Councillor Patterson's question, people, are they outlawed and carrying dogs in their car through the Royal National Park on their way south to Wollongong? It seems like it's just restricting our local beach access by saying no dogs in national parks, but they must allow dogs in cars travelling through the Royal National Park.
Through you, Madam Mayor, my understanding is that the road going through there would actually be a road reserve. It wouldn't form part of the national park. Where, as an example, the road off Loftus Road in through Bridges and crossing there is actually not a public road. It's actually part of the national park.
So, Mr. General Manager, would it be possible for us to ask it to be declared a road within Kempsey Council's control?
Yeah, what would happen there, Councillor Horville, is that would require a revocation of a part of the national park, and the state government has made it very clear again they're not giving up national park areas.
Even a bit of road. Okay, thank you very much.
And it add to the bottom line. We have a recommendation. We have it seconded. There is no lights or hands. Is there any dissent on the recommendation? The recommendation has been carried unanimously, and we'll move on to 9.11, which was the presentation of the annual financial statements. Do I have a thank you, councillors. Morris, do I have a seconder?
Moved it given I'm on the audit committee, but anyway, that's okay.
No, we're up to the presentation of the annual financial report. Yep. Oh, is that the one you wanted to move?
You did say that after that presentation.
Oh, I missed that.
You said it's not currently being voted on.
Go on the lights that we're on. Councillor McGinn, you're seconding?
Yes.
Excellent. Is there any?
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to say that I don't think we need to say too much. There are lots of questions asked of the external auditor when he presented the report. We should just move on and accept what we've been presented with.
I'm going to ask Councillor McGinn if she does want to say something, as she was going to move it, or would have liked to have moved it, and she is on the Audit and Risk Committee. Thank you, Councillor McGinn.
Thank you. I think I've had the thunder stolen actually, but and we do know that we've come up with a good result. But the process has been excellent. I will say that from being within the audit committee and watching the process work its way through, and we've had tremendous support from the staff who've been very professional and open with the auditors. So I think the process has been a really good one. And we're very lucky actually to have such an excellent audit committee that is functioning well, which we haven't had the benefit of in past history. So I think council is really working towards not only being financially sustainable, but the processes that are required to bring us to that point where we can hand on heart say that the financial reports actually reflect what's happening in the organisation.
Thank you, Councillor McGinn. The General Manager would like to say something.
Just to the councillors, just need to express a special thanks to Director Mitchell, who's really driven this whole process this year, and actually since he's been here really, and the progress we've made, not just in terms of the financial result, but the processes around that and the steps around that have been quite incredible that he's led that. And in Director Fisher's area, the assets and the team he has in the assets, so particularly those finance and asset teams have been absolutely sensational through this process.
And mostly with a smile on his face.
Thank you. And we'll now move on to item 10.1, which is... Oh, we've got a vote. Is there any dissent? There's no dissent. That's been passed unanimously. Item 10.1, which is notice of motion, Councillor Morris.
Madam Mayor, where the Code of Meeting Practice is written, I need to move the recommendation as it is as typed. So I'll move that, which is that Council implement the required processes to review Council's Code of Meeting Practice to change the items below, to vary the Council meeting time to commence at 5 p.m. on the third Tuesday of the month, except where variations to the days are required for public holidays in the ALGA or New South Wales, Local Government New South Wales Conference, to vary the timing of the public forum to be held immediately prior to the council meeting, and to vary the number of speakers permitted in relation to a matter on the agenda from 1 to 2 for and against. If I have a seconder, I'll.
Thank you, Councillor Horval. Yes, Councillor Morris.
I'll just very, very briefly speak to it. I put it up because I've always advocated for night meetings. I don't agree with the public forum being the night before. Part of the reason why we didn't have night meetings previously was because of the difficulty for some councillors to attend and the additional cost with staff. But we now have a public forum and a councillor workshop the night before, and we have another general manager's briefing session on an evening during the month as well. So a lot of those concerns as far as cost, I think, should not be as great. But listening to what the general manager, or listening to the general manager when he sent me an email and reading his comments, I'd like to move an amendment, and that is that that council notes that the new council can vary the council meeting times and the public forum structure if it is in accordance with the new model code of conduct, model code of meeting. And being the mover, I accept the amendment.
Councillor Morris, can I just confirm I got that wording right on the screen?
I haven't got it written down, so I'll have to have a read of it.
I'm going to speak against it, if I may, Madam Mayor. Just to say, really, this is a matter for the next council, not a matter for us to even determine whatever it is on the way out. And I think I would prefer that it was voted against, of course, and let the next council determine when they're going to meet.
Yeah,
it's the business of the next council.
Moving an amendment, Councillor McGinn, that you would like the next council to determine.
No, I think we just vote it down.
This doesn't ask for changes. Council notes that the new council has the capacity to do that. I suppose I just want to put it on the public record that the new council can change those things if they so desire.
So what you have as your recommendation now is that council notes that the new council can vary the council meeting times and the public forum structure.
Meeting practice.
So in effect, it's a statement to the community, is what you're arguing for. Which is a statement that's already in place.
It makes no difference whether it gets voted up or voted down.
Correct. Yeah.
The statement's been made.
Councillor Horval?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll speak in favour of the new amended motion in front of us. It's obvious that the new councillors, or the councillors to be, are watching and becoming more aware of the council processes. They will see this motion coming through and realise that it's in the control of the new council what is in the code of meeting practice, and it will have to be in accordance with the new model code, which is coming through to councils to consider in the first months of council. So it's quite important that they become aware that this is happening, and I would suggest that this being put in our minutes will certainly enhance their idea of the fact that they are in control of how meetings operate and at what level there are community engagements through public forums and through the timing of the public forum and the timing of the meeting. It's really up to them, and so into the future they will have control of how it works, and a majority will make that decision in the incoming council. So I suggest this is pretty straightforward, and it's not telling them to do it, it's just making them aware that they can make the decision. So I commend the motion as amended.
I'm going to take a comment from the General Manager, and then I'll take Councillor Shields.
Thanks, through you, Madam Mayor. At the end of the day, it's up to the councillors to, vote on this or any word that might change. What I would point out is, in line with the General Manager's comments, is that the code of meeting practice will be part of the induction. There will be a workshop held with the councillors. They will be needing to make decisions about the time of the meetings, the time of the public forum and those things. What you have before you is something that is already in place and will be occurring anyway.
No
Thank
need
you,
to speak,
Councillor
Madam Mayor.
Shields. Yes, you
The
may.
General Manager's just said it all. No need to speak. That's exactly my comment, that surely in the induction period, the code of meeting practice will be covered at length, and that they will understand that they'll have to adopt all those policies within the first 12 months. So this is just business as usual, and again, a waste of council's time.
Thank you, Councillor Shields. I was conflicted of whether, for the sake of it being probably the last notice, well, it is the last notice of motion that's going to come before this council, whether, and it makes absolutely no difference, because it is what we're going to do. I think we have actually given anyone online that is listening to this the idea that this is going to happen, and also it will be in the minutes, so they will all be aware. So, given the debate, I will be voting against the recommendation. So, is there any dissent on the recommendation? Oh, I didn't ask if you would like to close debate, Councillor
I
Morris.
don't want to close debate, Madam. I just want to ask a question. There was a staff report putting up a recommendation to a change to the code of meeting practice. Will that proceed, or will that be held over until the main review?
That will go into the main review. The main review will be held fairly early in the term, but also the topic of that staff report won't have any impact, given we've already rescheduled the meetings that have conflicts in the near future. But that will go into the main review. But that main review will be quite early in the term. We'd expect it to be February or March that's going to council.
That staff report basically had the wording that by a certain date, if it hadn't, it would be automatically done. So that will be deferred to be with the main review.
We're hoping to. Well, obviously, very early February doing the induction, which will cover the code of meeting practice. We'll then be having a workshop early in that process, and they'll be hoping to get the draft to the council at the March council meeting for it to go on public exhibition. So there'll actually be decisions made very early.
So, just before I ask for any dissent, just so that we're all clear, anyone that's listening or anyone that is reading the minutes, is that we're going to be doing, this recommendation says we're doing what has to be done anyway, which is the first council at the next council meeting of the next council will need to decide what time they have their council meetings and their public speaker forums. Is there any dissent on the recommendation? And the recommendation has been lost. Thank you, councillors. We will now go on to, I believe, confidential. Do I have a mover? Thank you, councillor.
Second that.
Thank you, councillor Saul. We're moving into confidential, so I'll ask that we clear the gallery of any visitors who all have
In relation to the resolutions taken by Council in closed session, in relation to item 11.1 legal matters, Council resolved that the information be noted. In relation to item 11.2, Audit and Risk Committee, change of committee name and meeting minutes 21 October 2021, Council resolved that Council 1 changes the name of the Audit and Risk Committee to the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee in accordance with guidance from the Office of Local Government. 2, notes the draft meeting minutes from the Audit and Risk Committee that was held on 21st of October 2021. And 3, extends the current membership of the Audit and Risk and Improvement Committee until such a time as Council conducts an expression of interest process for independent positions in accordance with the requirements of the adopted Office of Local Government guideline. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I just would like to make a few just remarks, as this is the last council meeting of this 5-year, 3 months term of council, which we all thought was only going to be 4. So this will be the last time this group of people sit around the table to make decisions on behalf of the whole community. First of all, I would like to say that for that 5.5 years, I have probably lived and breathed community and this council, and it's been a privilege to work with the staff and my fellow councillors. I think in 2011, when I first sat here, I said it's not so much about, for me, even though it's a formal meeting and the process, about how many points of order we had or how many times we got all that process right, but it was more about the quality of the decisions that we made and in the deliberations of making those decisions on behalf of the whole community. I do know that there is 3 people here that will not be sitting at the table next time for sure. So I think it's fitting that we say thank you and give them a contribution, a small token of our appreciation for the contributions that they have made. And to all the other councillor candidates that are contesting the election, I wish you all well. And maybe we'll see each other again sitting back here, and maybe not, but whatever, we know that this last few years have been something that we have all contributed to for the success of the Kempsey Shire. So I have just a small presentation to make to our outgoing councillors.
Liz, it's too much, Liz. Stop it, Liz.
Just minutes still being recorded.
I don't know what we'll do without you, but thank you for the voice of reason. Yeah. Thank you for everything.
Please don't go.
That was Ross community, as opposed to the presentation and the banner that we had around that, and the way that we always stood up for not only the Southwest Rock community, but thank you. Thank you. Now, Bruce, even today you showed that wisdom that you have, knowledge that you have, will be stored and community here are very grateful. Ash, the voice of the youth, 24 when you came on here. And I just wish you well, and I hope one day that we will see you back here. As Deputy Mayor, you're always the best support that anyone could have. Apart from Anthony, who's also a great Deputy Mayor, but you were the Deputy Mayor when we made that really tough decision to let's go forward, let's change, let's do something different. So this is from the council and from the community for the dedication that you've shown over the last, I think, 9 years now. So thank you. And there's one more thing that I need to say, apart from good luck to all the candidates that contest in this election, is that not one of us are where we are today without partners that we have and our families that support us. I know I'm not, and I know that we thank them, and I think we should actually give them a round of applause for their contribution to the Kempsey Shire. And that draws the meeting of this term of council to a close. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.